Author of Hidden History, Crimes and Cover-Ups in American Politics, 1776 to 1963, and Survival of the Richest, Donald Jeffries separates the real from the unreal. Fact from fiction. Reverse engineering our manufactured reality. And now, from just outside the swamp-infested Washington, D.C., this is I Protest with Donald Jeffries.
And welcome to I Protest. It's Donald Jeffries here, coming to you, as the man says, from just outside the swamp-infested Washington, D.C., as we do every Friday at this time from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern. Glad to have you guys join us. I just found out that the guy who set himself on fire outside the Trump trial was one of my Substack subscribers, so hopefully he's not one of my primary commentators or something. But and this is kind of an interesting aside. We're doing another J6 themed show today. As you know, we've had Ashley Babbitt's mom on a couple times. Had several people on here. We have two more J6 defendants here. I was hoping to have two others. One of them I knew dropped out, and the other one, whatever reason, we're still trying to get him on. He's not responding to the link, so we may have a third person here. But at any rate, we'll go with what we have. It's certainly an interesting story. Rebecca Lavrens, is that correct?
Lavrens.
Rebecca Lavrens has been in the news a lot lately. She's the 70-year-old grandmother that was arrested, basically was in the Capitol for 10 minutes. I think they call it a praying grandma, great grandma, supposedly would know it to look at her. But this is, a travesty that she could possibly go to prison, especially 3 years later. So Rebecca, why don't you tell your story and then we'll go to Stacy.
Okay, well, mine happens to be a little bit different than some of the other ones. Not that it's better, worse, or whatever. I was just talking to Stacy, our other guest that's going to be on, and his story looks different, but they all are. But the same bottom line, they want to stop our voices is how I look at it. And my story starts, I guess. I'm known as the praying grandma and now great grandma. I'm 71. I'll be 72 in a few weeks, but ever since I can remember, I always knew there was a God that's real. And when I was in about 14 or 15, I made a decision after someone told me that I could have a personal relationship with God. I knew that Jesus had said that if you want to be my disciple, you need to deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. So I made that decision that my life was no longer my own. And I made it my lifelong mission to follow Jesus, who said he was the way, the truth, and the life. And so I've never considered my life my own from that time forward. And not that I've ever done everything perfect. That's not the point. The point was to know God and to know truth and who he was. And when 2020 came around, and I'm sure it had been going on, as we all know, years and years before that. But when it came out that so many people were not willing to fight for their liberties, I thought, this is crazy. What's going on in this world? I did not want my liberties taken away from them. I have a background as a registered nurse, and knowing that, I knew that this mask thing that covered our faces could not keep a little virus away from killing and that whole debacle. But I just, more than that, the scientific reason behind it, I just thought no one would give in to having their liberty taken away, their breath taken away, and not being able to interact with people. And so I decided I would never wear one of those. And because of the decision that I made, that I will base my decisions and what I do on truth. So as the 2020 kept progressing, and I thought, this is really getting bad. And then I saw that President Trump was the only one that I saw that was going to stand and fight for our national sovereignty and our truth. So having been raised in a home where my dad was a government and history teacher, he taught me from the time I was a kid, and I was his student in high school. And he told me that the government was for two things: limited government. They are to, I don't know if that's exactly true, but he said we have to have a strong defense military defense, and they need to take care of roads. That was the only thing he said they were for. And I bought into that because I love my freedoms. I live on 5 acres in Colorado, right outside Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I love being out in the country. I love having my freedoms and be able to enjoy my life and do what I feel that God's put on his heart. So on God's heart. And so I started getting involved in the election, or in the Republican Party in my state. I got involved. We have very strong grassroots Republican chairwoman in our county. And I thought, I'm going to go out and do whatever I can. I became involved with the local politics. And obviously, we all thought, with the way President Trump was fighting for or standing for our national rights and our freedoms, that this was the rightful person that we all should vote for as our president. And when I went to bed on election night, I realized, oh, this is what it's going to be like in the morning. And I wake up and it's not that way. And I thought, this can't happen. I said, this is not the United States of America. What happened? I'm not an investigative researcher too much, but I know a lot of people that I trust with that. And I thought, things are going to shift. And I had been studying the Constitution that fall because I heard about a guy named Rick Green from Patriot Academy who was teaching classes all over on the Constitution. I started taking that, and I just realized, even more than I ever did, that our Constitution is in place to back up our freedoms. And so there are things in place that take care of that. And I realized even more than ever that this country is not made up of bureaucrats and political people that we put in office to tell us what to do, but it's made up of we the people. So as I saw things that were unfolding, I realized how grossly fraudulent a lot of the things that had happened on that election night had been happening. And I thought, with the way the Constitution and our government was set up, that things that were being taken care of or contested and questioned would get things righted, and it would be taken care of before the inauguration. And especially, how the Electoral College goes. And then fast forward to about the 1st of January, I got a call from my oldest son, who lives in the same area in Colorado as I am. He said, Mom, are you going to go to the rally in Washington, D.C. on the 6th? And I said, well, I hadn't really thought about it. And he said, well, I think you need to pray about it. You need to ask God and think about it. And so I said, well, I'll do that. And within a few hours after talking to God about it, I knew that I was called that God wanted me to go there. So on the 3rd, actually, of January is when I decided I'm going to do this. And because of my personal relationship with Jesus, I felt like God wanted me to fast and pray. So I took the time to fast, pray. I knew that I was going to go there for my main reason. I knew I was going to stand up and for my First Amendment rights, which are to, we have a right to peacefully assemble to petition the government for a redress of our grievances. And so I was excited to go. I didn't have to take any food. I didn't have to worry about that because I was fasting and praying. And because I didn't agree to the things that they would say if I flew. My son had said, Mom, I know you won't fly. So he was going to go with my grandson, his son. And so he said, it's only 25 hours to drive, so you can do that in 2 days.
You drove from Colorado?
Yeah, I'm on the road right now, actually.
Okay.
So going another trip, but with the permission of my probation officer. So,
oh boy,
I knew I'd get a little eyebrow raise out of that one.
Yeah.
But I love adventure, and I prayed about it, and I felt like God is saying, I'll be with you in the driver's seat. Jesus was beside me, and I said, it'll be fine, and we'll have an adventure. It'll help you live longer to have adventure. So I believe that. So I drove 25 hours, took 2 days, got to Washington, D.C. on the night of the 5th. My daughter at that time was living in Washington, D.C., and she had a room in a house about 4 blocks from the Capitol. So I got there, went to bed, and excited about getting up the next morning. When I got up the next morning on the 6th, spend some time with God and just listening to what he wanted me to do. And I just felt led to just walk over there and just be there ahead of time before everything, was going on, and got in front of the Capitol at around 10 o'clock. And I was on the east side, and I felt, like I said, I was there to pray. I knew that was my assignment. I got there and I was positioned right in front of the Columbus stores on the east side of the Capitol. And I was right behind the barricades. And actually there was nobody else in front of them. And I thought, I'm going to stay here all day if I have to pray. And I remember texting my daughter at one point. I said, if those barricades come down, I feel like God wants me to carry his presence up those steps and into the Capitol. But well, that was early on. And then after I'd been there about an hour and a half, around 11:30, I noticed to the left of me, there was a platform. People were praying and they were worshiping God. And I thought, well, I think I'll go over there and see what's going on. They had some chairs there. I thought maybe I could sit down, and got over there. Before I even got to where the grassy area, it was a permitted area, I found out later, but I had this strong sense of God's presence just fell over me, and it just lasted for about 10 minutes. I couldn't even stand up. It was a very strong, powerful presence that I sat on the ground and just wept for about 10 minutes. And after it was lifted, I knew that I was interceding and praying and weeping for my country, and got up, walked over towards to where that platform was. And there were people at the bottom of it. There was a guy with a microphone, and I just asked him if I could pray on that over the microphone. And what came on me was, I think we all know here in the 1620 compact that the Pilgrims made on the Mayflower Compact before they stepped off that ship. They said that this land that they stepped their foot on would be for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith. And I've always lifelong been a strong believer in covenants, and I knew that the original intent of something is what we need to remember. And so I thought, I'm just going to pray that. So that's what I prayed. I just prayed that this country would give glory to God and advance the Christian faith. Prayed a little bit more, and then just left and ended up walking back to where I was in front of the east doors on the east side of the Capitol. And I just didn't feel like I wanted to walk over to the ellipse to hear President Trump's speech. I just felt like I was on assignment basically from God as his ambassador to be in front of those in there and just pray. And that's all I felt. And as the crowd got bigger and bigger as we went on, and by the way, when I got there at 10 o'clock in the morning, there were so many wonderful, jubilant, patriotic people that just loved God. They were peaceful. They were all just happy to stand for in agreement with what we felt was God's purpose for being our country, stand up for what we thought was, unjustly stolen or taken from us. And there was no violence that I saw around me. And then after it got to be about 1 or 2 o'clock, and the crowd was getting larger, and people were getting a little upset because I think they had heard somebody had said that there was Vice President Pence had said that he was not going to, that he thought he couldn't do anything about the electoral college vote. And I think people were just, getting, they thought he couldn't do something. I think our laws say that he can. And I didn't know that exactly at the time. And I don't know if anybody knows for sure about that. But
well, you certainly didn't hear anybody chanting hang Pence or any of that nonsense.
No, right? Never. No, all we said was we were singing patriotic songs, John. We were singing, this is, right, with, USA and all the flags. And if you know what a flags, I think we all know, everybody says the Pledge of Allegiance. Yes. We know that this is a republic, and a republic is made up of we the people, not bureaucrats at the top that think they can do whatever they want. And so they represent us, and I thought they had to hear us. So like I said, I texted my daughter and I said, if those barriers come down and the doors open, I feel like I'm supposed to go in. I want to carry God's presence into that building and just exercise my First Amendment rights. So eventually they did come down. I don't know how they came down. I did not push them down. And so they all came down. We started walking towards the steps, and I walked up the steps and was out on the front, and it felt like the police officers just moved back and were letting us in. And like I said, I don't know how the doors opened, but I didn't push them, and I just saw that they opened. I walked in. When I got inside the Capitol, my first thought is, I'm just exactly in this Kairos moment of God that I'm right exactly where I'm supposed to be. Because when I got in there, all I could see in front of my mind's eye was my 3 youngest grandchildren. At that time, they were 7, 5, and 3. And I just thought, I have to do whatever I can on my watch so that our country doesn't go down to Marxism ideologies on my watch. And so I felt like I was right where I was supposed to be, doing what God wanted me to do. I felt very, I don't know what the word is, jubilant or whatever, joyful inside, knowing that I was doing the right thing. Walked in, walked around, went towards this one hallway. And then after I was just barely in the hallway, and the gentleman in front of me turned around and he said, well, we're leaving. And I said, well, why are we leaving? Because I thought we were going to make our presence known to the congressmen that were in the building. And he just said, well, they've already left the building, so there's no reason for us to go any further. So we turned around, walked out, and I was in there 10 minutes left and thought, I did what God told me to do. I did my civic duty, and I thought, this is what God had me here for.
And they called you the praying grandmom because of that. So I want to so we'll hold it there, and then we're going to talk about what happened afterwards. Stacy, why don't you explain why you went to Washington D.C. on January 6th and what your story was in terms of getting there and what you did when you were there.
I have a lifelong friend. I had a lifelong friend who asked me. He's very concerned about the election, just like I was. The same thing Rebecca said. So when we went to bed on the 3rd, it was one outcome, and we woke up on the 4th, it was another, and we knew that couldn't happen. It's never happened before. Right. A sitting president has never lost a second term with a 40% approval rating ever. The bellwether counties, he carried all them. Never lost before, ever. The states and all that they what they called the battleground states are the states they cheated in. You know, that there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They cheated, and they've cheated in those states. And they cheated in those states in the biggest cities they had. Let's see, Phoenix, Atlanta, it's just everywhere. Detroit.
No, certainly.
It was a bad thing. And he wanted to be able to do something about having the vote taken away. Our votes were stolen from us. You know, I don't know about anybody else in this country, but my vote is very important to me. You know, I don't care about everybody else's votes. They vote for who they want. I should be allotted this same privilege. And when you go to stealing my vote, things are, it's like taking food off of my table. You don't do that. And so I felt it was important for me to go to Washington, D.C. on the 6th. I did. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I felt like it was very important that I be there. And the reason why I felt that way is because I had a dream, much like Rebecca when she was praying. And I was told to go and witness. And it wasn't exactly verbal, but it was seared in my mind.
Sure.
Capital G, little o, comma, capital W, I-T, N-E-S-S. And it was seared in my head. So I called my friend back up later that day, and it was the 1st. We spent New Year's Eve at home, just like we did the rest of 2020. Everybody else in the nation was staying home too, so we didn't drink, nothing. But I had a dream that night. And it was obvious who it was because the dream was filled with love and beautiful, bright colors. I was shown a great gathering of people that nobody ever talks about. They never talk about how many people were there. There were over 1 million people there. American citizens had come to the nation's capital for justice. But there was none to be found for us. We were set up.
No, there's no question about it. And obviously, I talking about the election the night before, I was on Jeff Rentz's show, as I am every Monday night, and we were talking about the election, and I had seen the returns, and Trump was comfortably ahead in all the battleground states, and it was a foregone. We both said, "Well, yeah, this is a foregone conclusion." And By the time I got off the phone,
Yeah.
I went back and checked the late results, and suddenly they stopped counting the votes. So people need to realize that this didn't come from nothing. It was the way it happened, because it looked as if it looked as if Trump was a shoo-in. It looked like he was winning, definitely, and then suddenly, mysterious hours go by and votes aren't counted. And then when suddenly they come back with a new block of votes counted, and Joe Biden gets 90% of them in some areas. Impossible things that happened, and not to mention the late night ballot thing. So I'm obviously with you, and we all knew something was up there. And I have my alibi. I was sitting in a dentist chair that day because the TV was on, and I had it. And I was like, God, I'm glad I got an alibi. Once I started realizing this is ridiculous what they're doing, because I saw it was happening the way they were portraying this. So when you get there, tell us how. And I read a little bit about your case, and I know the judge lectured you, and I'm writing about this stuff now. I write about hidden history, and I'm trying to cover the Trump years and the Biden years. And so January 6th has a big part in it. And I know the judge lectured you about, get different sources or something, which is the inappropriate thing the judges have been doing to all the J6 defendants. But before we get to that, though, talk about what happened when you were there. So you felt you had to go there like Rebecca did. When you're there, Rebecca went inside for 10 minutes and basically praying. What did you do when you got there? Did you intend to, did you kind of get swept up in the moment to go into the Capitol with all the other people? Did the police let you in? What happened when you went inside?
Well, we got there really early. We probably got there around 8. Looked for a place to park for like an hour. Finally found one by the river on the other side of the Roosevelt Granite Garden. So we had to walk through that, by Lincoln Memorial, by the World War II Memorial, onto the grounds of the Washington Monument. We got there about 9 in the morning. When we stepped foot on the property where the Lincoln Memorial, where the Washington Monument is, it just seemed to me like everything was brighter and clearer, just like the dream I'd had. Everything was brighter and clear. There was a feeling inside your soul that just made you smile, because there were so many people there. Everyone you talked to was smiling, and they felt the same feeling we had. We all were there for the same feeling, and with the same feeling, with the same purpose in mind. We wanted to have our representatives take a second look at this election that all of us, common sense tells you that something is wrong with this election. And that wasn't happening. So we showed up to the rally, and we were over 1 million strong there. That the streets were, the eclipse was full of people. The property of the Washington Monument was full. The streets were full. They were packed shoulder to shoulder. Down Pennsylvania Avenue was packed from one end to the other, from the White House to the Capitol. That's 1 million people, and that wasn't even all of them. They were down all the streets. They were everywhere. People were everywhere. Whenever I got to the Capitol, there were 250,000 people on the lawn. It was crazy. I got there probably about 10 minutes after 2:00, and that's when we started hearing the live munitions going off on the crowd. They were attacking the crowd. They were attacking peaceful demonstrators standing there waving their flags. That's all they were doing. Groups of people with their wives and children.
Yeah.
They weren't riding. They were standing there waving their flags.
This is what, no one was inside the Capitol. This is before anybody was in the Capitol, right? Was anybody
between 2:10 when I got there and 2:30.
Right. So this is before anybody had gotten inside the Capitol.
That's whenever I was there.
Yeah.
I never saw I never saw the snow fencing they were talking about, or the barricades. I never seen any of that. There was too many people there. There was 250,000 people on the premises already. It was packed. Finding our way up to the courtyard was it was a monumental task. I think God had something to do with parting the crowd for us so we could get up there. It's just that's the way the whole thing was. I was told to go witness, and whatever that meant, I just followed my intuition, and it was telling me to go up to the front. Not to mention the two guys I was with wanted to go up there. You know, I probably would have been happy not to go up there. But
So when you got there though, before we go back to Rebecca, so what happened? You finally got in the Capitol, and then what happened when you were inside there? And what did they claim you did, or what did you actually do, or whatever? And what were you charged with eventually?
I got the same 4 charges everyone else got,
Yeah.
but it was not quite like that. Whenever I got up there, I got into the courtyard. There was a bullhorn lady there. She looked like Wavette, whatever her name is, Berkeley Antifa president, on a bullhorn, calling people in, up under the scaffolding, up toward closer to
Calling people in. You think this was
Calling
somebody from
people in.
Antifa was trying to get people to go in?
Yeah, I have it on tape.
Okay.
And I got up behind her because I realized I was in the sheep line to slaughter. So I jumped out of that and got in behind her and started filming the crowd. It was a spectacle. There were so many people. And while I was doing that, the police fired live munitions into the lady's chest. I mean, she was standing there with her family, holding her flag. She wasn't even really waving it.
Yeah.
Her and her group right there, about 6, 7, 8 people, were just standing there, at least 100 feet behind the bicycle racks, and they were firing into the crowd. They were trying to get a riot started. That's what was going on.
Yeah.
And it's obvious if you watch the tapes. If you go online, look up what Parler saw January 6th. There's thousands of personal videos.
Well, there was still, there were 14,000 hours supposedly were withheld. I don't know if I don't think they've all still been released, but it's all there if people want to see it. But they suppressed it.
No, what I'm talking about is the demonstrators uploaded their videos to Parler, and somebody coalesced it, put it's all labeled around the Capitol, inside the Capitol, at the eclipse, stuff like that, or marching, and it's got a timeline, the whole 9 yards. It's a wonderful piece of if you want to look stuff. I mean, it shows you at 150. I mean, at 135 is when the first tear gas or flashbang, whatever you want to call those live munitions, went off into the crowd. And when that happened, there's no kind of scuffle going on between police and the demonstrators or anything. As a matter of fact, there's a demonstrator with his back to the police standing right behind him. He's got his butt on the bicycle rack and his foot up. And the police are behind him. He's talking to someone in front of him. There's no violence at all. And all of a sudden, boom, right in the middle of the crowd. Right.
So they keep in mind, people, you're hearing from somebody who was there. And this is the way this thing is being portrayed. This was a violent insurrection, all this stuff. This is stuff that the police acting this way before, at this point, they had no reason, even if you think this was an insurrection, which obviously it wasn't, but even if you think they're going to rush the Capitol, no one had made a move to do that yet. And they're expressing their constitutional rights to assembly.
Yeah.
They have every right to do that. There's no, why are police, that's absolutely ridiculous for them to do that. And then of course, later you have I don't know how you ended up getting in, Stacy, but, and Rebecca described her, but we had the videos of the police waving people in, including one of them inside was Brian Sicknick, and Tucker Carlson showed that in his show. He was one of the people waving around after he's supposedly been hit with a fire extinguisher, which is a lie, but so many lies that day. But so how did you eventually get inside the building? Did they wave you in, or how did that work?
After I saw that go off and went basically crazy, I wound up working my way up to the grandstands that are right with the back of the grandstands up against the Capitol building. There's just a concrete sidewalk in between. I'm on the top level waving my flag. Just you have no idea how I was waving my flag, because that's why I came. I wanted to wave my flag. That's the reason why I even wrote that in my Facebook before it got deleted. The page got zucked. Anyway, I was up there waving my flag, and I hear the fire alarm go off at the Upper West Terrace doors. So I turn and look over my shoulder, and there's a bigwig cop opening the door from the inside, like all the other doors in the Capitol were opened from the inside. You know, they have electronic locks on them. All the guy at the control center has to do is push the button and the door opens. If they don't do that, the door doesn't open. You know, it's a very secure building. Has electronic locks on all the doors. If they don't want the door open, it doesn't come open. But every door that was open from the inside. I don't care how many windows they broke. I don't care how many things they passed outside to the crowd that we all saw on tape. We saw the FBI top officers busting windows and stuff, and the crowd telling them to stop. You know, that was a common theme. Anytime somebody did something against the cops or against the Capitol, the demonstrators were setting them straight. You don't do that. That's my house. My house. My house. I'm here for fair, free elections. I'm not here to watch you tear up my property. You know, I'm an American. That Capitol belongs to me. The property that the Capitol sits on belongs to me. Whenever I have if I want to gather and congregate and express grievances on public property, I have that right.
Your tax dollars.
What is wrong with these people?
Absolutely,
trespassing. We got Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell making it illegal for citizens to gather on the nation's capital.
Yep.
They made that impossible for us to gather, to assemble. It's in the Constitution. We have the right to assemble, to express our grievances. That's why we were there, for fair, free elections. We didn't get one.
Absolutely. So you when you get inside through a door that's been opened from the inside, and that can't be stressed enough that this was that people are not breaking these doors. They waved you in too.
Not only did he open the door, he opened there 3 times. He opened it, drawed attention to it being open. Nobody, a platoon of riot police had just backed away that were guarding that door. And another cop came up to them and talked to each one of them. There were line of 4. One here, all the way up. There was about, 24 maybe in that platoon. And he went up to the one on the left and on that line and talk to him, and then he would talk to the other guys. And he walked his way all the way to the front. They backed away and left that entrance wide open. And then they weren't gone 30 seconds. And this big wig with the black leather jacket and navy pants on that opened the door from the inside, he opened the door. Fire alarm goes off. He's holding the door open. You know, catches my attention. I look, I see. He gets tired of holding the door open. He goes inside to grab a box because they're using that hallway as like a storage area. File boxes in there. He puts the file box down there. Well, the door is too heavy for the file box, so it just pushes it right back in. So he takes it back in. He's in there for 20 seconds or so, comes back in and openly waves people inside.
Absolutely.
I walk through this threshold. This is all on tape right here. What I'm about to tell you right now, this is on tape. I'll walk across the threshold. The first thing I hear is this guy in the black jacket and navy pants holler to the other cops at the end of the hall. They're guests. That's what he said. So I'm thinking,
wow.
Well, I guess everything's okay. So I'll follow him down there to where the other cops are, and I'm still nervous. I mean, I'm in the Capitol. It's a big deal to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very patriotic guy. It's a big deal, even though I'm walking through what looks like a storage area. I'm very happy to be there. So I tell him, I said, there's a million people outside. Almost didn't get that out before he said, bring him in. It's on tape. So I'll wait for the guy who's checking people for weapons. I'm like the sixth or seventh person through that door.
Yeah.
And there's a cop there checking people for weapons. But somebody's already got by him, and he turns around and looks at him. He's like the second or third person through the door. He looks back at the cops that are there. There's two of them, the one checking for weapons, the one right beside him, and says, what? We're supposed to go in, right? What? We're supposed to go in, right? It's all audible on the tape. They used that tape to send me to prison for 7 months for 4 misdemeanors.
Wow, that's. I mean, again, what you're describing should have. Well, I'll let you go, but I mean, what you're describing should have already exonerated you because all this they should have said. Can you describe the officer? Can we have the video? Because again, the first thing they should have been doing, I said at the beginning, they should have identified the police officers that were waving people in and opening the doors, because they are accessories after the fact to whatever they claim you all were doing, but they aren't. So go ahead. You said you're not going to finish
it. Didn't matter. The in DC, that justice system, it doesn't matter. They had a particular agenda. They were going to make the people who went into the Capitol pay. They're gonna make sure that Americans don't come back to DC, and they don't object to any more fraud-riddled elections that they want to push through.
Yes,
because that's what happened. All right. Well, after the guy tells me to bring him in, and the other guy says, "What? We're just supposed to go in." The cop checking for weapons gets to me, and he touches me on my back just below my right shoulder blade with his left hand and says, "Go in, go out." Loud enough for me, the person in front of me, and the person behind me to hear that. So from that point forward, anybody who went through that door had permission.
Yeah.
They had permission to go in that door, upper west terrace door. And I was the sixth or seventh person through the door. I said, "Thank you, sir." Get to the steps, and I turn around and holler at those cops that just let me in. "We love you." I yell it 3 times, actually. It's one of the loudest things they'll say while I'm inside the Capitol is, "We love you," to the cops who let me in 3 different times.
Yeah.
I got up I went straight into the rotunda, and it took my breath away. I had to sit down because it took my breath away. And no sooner did I sit down than some FBI informant looking dude tried to get me to go to Nancy Pelosi's office. It's all on tape. Every bit of it's on tape. And
you couldn't present the tape at
yeah.
trial, or they didn't care?
No, the Judge Hutchinson didn't care. It was a bench trial. She didn't care. She said that the prosecution faithfully proved that I was in the wrong. And all they did was play my tapes.
So your own evidence, which should have exonerated you, they used to prosecute. Well, I got to tell you though, you really, compared to some of the other sentences I've seen, I mean, 7 months is obviously unjust, but you could have gotten 15 years, like one of the other women that was going to be the show. Her husband was sent away for 15 years, which is
I understand that, and I can't disagree, but according to, I mean, if you haven't seen my
well, you shouldn't have gotten anything
video,
yeah, sure.
you can go to YouTube and find it. My name's Stacy Hager, and you'll be able to find it. I think it's 87 or 84, 77, something like that. I don't remember. But I'm definitely on YouTube. And there's a lot of other videos on there. There's one of me in the courtyard. There's one of me on the grandstands, and there's one inside the Capitol.
Tell us again where you said this is on. Yeah, send it to me, but tell people where they can find it exactly and what it's called, what it's titled.
Y'all can go on and I'll look it up.
Okay,
but I don't know.
Great. Okay, well, let's go. That's a good point.
I've been in prison for 7 months.
Gotcha. Well, how long have you been out?
I've been out for 10 days.
Oh,
I left
okay.
for the greatest people that I've known in quite a long time. Right there, those 4 people came from. They were in D.C. on the 6th. The one on the far right, he was in the lower tunnel. He helped people get out. He made everyone. He got the crowd to move to the right, so they could get the people that were falling out of the tunnel on the left.
Gotcha. That's wonderful. And I just want to say to the
we
people
go in the middle. He's the one that was propped his feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk, and she wanted him to be there for 20 years. He got 5.
Yeah.
The guy next to me, he his name is Daniel Phelps. He's a really good guy. So is DC. They're all great people. The other 2 next to Big O, both of those guys defended women in the face of the Capitol and Metro police that were beating the hell out of them with nightclubs, and they ended up in jail.
Well, I just want to address the people in the chat room, because I'm getting a few, and I understand there's a whole sentiment out there in the alt media that believes you guys were set up, and that this was, and that may be true. But I said, it doesn't matter. No matter what, like I said, I would have defended you guys if you had been Black Lives Matter or anything, because I'm a civil libertarian. So the way you were treated is outrageous. You had a right to be there. It doesn't look like hardly anyone did anything wrong at all, or if they did, it should have been a slap on the wrist. There's no real crimes that were committed anywhere. The outrage of these sentences, so it doesn't matter whether you shouldn't have gone there. In retrospect, of course, all of you would probably say in retrospect, I wouldn't have gone there if I'd known this was going to happen. But
I would have gone.
Well, and
if I'd have known I was going to jail for 7 months, I would have went.
Well, you're yeah. So so you have courage of convictions, but it's the bigger point here is what happened and what is still happening. That's why we're going to go back to Rebecca, because Rebecca is your case. We'll talk about what happened to you at trial, Stacy, but I want to go to Rebecca because she's a little bit different than Stacy. She was not in there for very long, but they took a while to catch up to her. And this is what really troubles me now, is that you're seeing this happening 3 years later. They're finding. So Stacy, I'll ask you later because I know they came to your house and everything. Rebecca, after January 6th, you go back. I assume you drive back to Colorado. I don't know. When did the authorities ever contact you? How long did they take? Because we have terrible stories that I found where, daughters turning in their mothers or somebody turning them in for a Facebook post. Horrible things that showed the dysfunction of America, that family members would do that, knowing how the overreaction to this. What happened to where 3 years later you can be possibly subject to prosecution here?
Well, actually, Don, I was two FBI agents knocked on my door. I live out in the country, and towards the end, about this time, April 19th, around that time, actually, I thought it was that same day, around the same day, exactly.
Yeah.
3 years ago, I got a knock on my door. I was going to have my son and his over for his birthday, and his their family, or I think it was my son and his wife, my daughter-in-law, and I was baking a cake, and I get a knock on the door, and I go to the door. I think, who's knocking on my door? I don't get many people at my door in the country. And there was a man and a woman, and they said, "We're with the FBI. We're here to investigate you for your involvement on January 6th. And that was the first time I never thought, they'd find me. I was there by myself. Wasn't doing anything wrong. And first thing that came out of my mouth was, I've got a mess in my kitchen. I'm baking a cake. Can you come back a different day? And I said, fine. So they handed me their card. That's the way I think it should be. They don't have any rights. So they gave me the card, and they said, get in contact with us. And so I did later on when they investigated me later on the month, within a few days or a week or so. They came out and investigated me. And then I thought, nothing happened. They never got back with me. It was almost 3 months later, and they called me and said, well, you're going to be arrested probably and charged with, like Stacy's had those 4 federal misdemeanors. And I remember getting that call, and there was the agent that told me that was like in August or September. And she paused and she said, well, you should be very happy that there are no felonies. I thought to myself, I didn't say it at that time. I said, I shouldn't be charged with anything. I'm doing my rightful duty as a citizen of the United States. And then she said, they're probably going to take you up to Denver. I'm close to Denver, where the federal courthouse was, and charge me and, all that sort of thing. And then I didn't hear anything, I thought, well, maybe they forgot about me because I'm not that much of a profile person that I'm any danger, obviously. But then it was actually almost a year and a half later in December when they gave me a call, and they said, we need you to turn yourself in on December 19th, few days before Christmas. They said, show up there to be arrested for those 4 misdemeanors. So they waited a while. But
Christmas, and so then you go to trial, and so describe the process of going to trial. What kind of lawyer did you have? Because I know that's been a problem with a lot of the J6 defendants. And although all the courts seem stacked against you, because you were tried in Washington, D.C. or Colorado?
I was tried in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, initially, this was 2022 December when I got charged, and then in 23 January I started searching for an attorney and found one that I knew felt would defend me, but he just didn't think I had a defense. And so he did say that. I just said, I need to find somebody that will fight on my behalf. And he was very nice about it, but he just said, He actually told me after I said, I got to find one that'll fight for me, because the prosecution, of course, wanted me to take a plea. And from the very beginning, I knew if God told me to go in that building, I'm not going to go take a plea for doing something I felt was the right thing, that I wasn't doing anything wrong. And so he said, you're a breath of fresh air, when I said goodbye to him, and found an attorney that really would fight for me. And I remember when I talked to them initially, and I think it was May of a year ago or so, I said, I'm looking for someone that will defend me all the way. And they said, President Trump is a fighter and you're a fighter. And if you take a plea, you'll never be able to look yourself in the mirror again with honor. And I knew that somebody was reading what my heart was. So I got with them, and they're the ones that John Pierce and Roger Roots were my, and their wonderful paralegal, Emily, defended me. And I went to trial March 25th, just a few weeks ago. And knowing that the DC court is very, like Stacy was probably knows, they're not in your favor, but I knew that whatever happened, I wasn't going to run from the issue, because I felt like for my basic beliefs, I believe our country has gotten this way because we haven't realized that we are the republic, that the country, the United States, is made from we the people. Like President Lincoln said, it's by the people, for the people, and of the people. That's who we are. This is our country. And so I knew that I was going to go there, because there's no way that it doesn't even sound right. The U.S. government against Rebecca Lawrence just doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
The very country that I love, and they're telling me they're going to, make me guilty for something of defending my country. It's just like an oxymoron. So I went there, knowing that I would, they were going to put up a good fight, and they did. There's a lot of evidence that they came up with, and I don't know about you, Stacy, but they came up with a lot of evidence that didn't get to be used in the courtroom, because after we get there, they have these rules for the trial that kind of like Monopoly, you have certain game rules, but then when you get there, they change them to make them fit so they can always win. And I found out later, after I got into the trial, you can't even use the First Amendment for your defense. So,
yeah, is that something? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I thought the trial would probably last about 4 days. It ended up going into the next week, Monday on the 1st of April, because I wanted to take the witness stand, and I was on the witness stand for 4 to 5 hours. And my attorney said, I'm a praying grandma. I went there to pray. I just walked peacefully in. Maybe they treat men different than women. I don't know, but they put up a really good defense, and it was amazing. I
don't know how a jury could not be moved by you. You're obviously, especially you're the way you present yourself and what you're talking. You're a grandma who went there because you felt God called you there, and you're in there for 10 minutes. You obviously did nothing wrong whatsoever. And they still charge you with the same thing, trespassing, and was it interfering with, I don't know what they're
disorderly and disruptive conduct.
Yes, disorderly and disruptive conduct.
Yeah, 2 of them, disorderly and disruptive. And if you saw my videos, I'm just wandering around,
Yeah.
I had a little headband on with little squiggly things, little flags.
Oh boy.
And they thought, it was really kind of, a funny part of the whole presentation.
Well, you have a great attitude about it, I must say. You're laughing and smiling. It's wonderful. You can be upbeat like this. But so what happened when they convicted you? Do you know what you face? Could you go to prison, and how long?
Well, this is the interesting part about it. Okay, so my trial was into the 6th day, and right at the end of the first day, Monday of the 1st, they go into deliberation, after the jury gets their instructions and the closing remarks. It was like 4:45, so they had about an hour. And most cases, my attorney said, for these, I don't know how long Stacy's was, but they deliberate and they'll convict you in an hour or less, 30 minutes.
Sure.
Well, they went into the first day of deliberation, that first day, Monday. And then Tuesday, they didn't deliberate. And Wednesday, they deliberated. And Thursday, they deliberated. They deliberated over 25 hours. So, somebody in that jury was on my side. They were, wanted to acquit me. And I kind of felt that, as a my dad was a coach, my husband was a coach, and my boys both played college baseball. And, you know, when you go into a battle, you always want to win, even if you're the underdog.
Sure.
So I thought, well, my attorneys have all said that you have a really good chance to win because nobody, like you said, Don, I don't look like a violent person. And so I go finally at 3:00 on Thursday, the 4th, they said, come to the courtroom because we have a verdict now. So we got there and I was kind of prepared myself to win. But even before that, because God is very important. And I think I believe that I've always said this, you know, when I prayed that we'd be a country that gives glory to God. And I felt like whatever God wants me to use me for in this purpose, kind of like Stacy said, God gave him that dream. It's like, I'm there for a bigger purpose. It's not about me. I have a friend back in Colorado at home that says, Rebecca is us and we're Rebecca. It's like Stacy and all of us that were January 6th defendants, we were there for a bigger purpose. And whatever that bigger purpose is, that's what I want to fulfill. And so probably the night before is when I realized, wow, they're deliberating this long. And I had one of my sons, a different son, called me and said, Mom, how do you want me to pray about the outcome? And I said, well, whatever God wants, because I looked at it and I realized maybe, I could win and get acquitted, but then what if, maybe the bigger purpose is that my voice will get louder if I don't. So I get into the courtroom and Stacy knows how this works. I never learned it till that day, but you stand up and then the reporter, reads your charges and then the jury's there and they, she reads the first count, entering remaining in a restricted building, and the foreperson says guilty, and thought, well, okay, maybe I'm trespassing. So then she gets to the next charge, disorderly and disruptive conduct in a Capitol building. And I thought, surely they won't say that I'm disorderly, but they said guilty. And then by the end of all four, they guilty on all four counts. I thought, first I was shocked because I thought, how could they do this in a country like the United States of America, who's supposed to be, standing for liberty and justice. But then within a minute after that, all of a sudden I realized, well, God has a bigger plan in this. And so I just thought, wow, this is going to make my voice amplified. And I believe that's why God wanted this, because I have thousands of people praying for me. And I knew if they were petitioning God and it turned out this way, then there's a bigger purpose. And I think the bigger purpose is because the people of the United States need to be woke up. They're sleeping. They don't see what's going on. I have people I have friends that I've gotten to know that never even knew that people like Stacy were sitting in prison. And people need to wake up to this fact. And so I just said, this is going to amplify my voice. And it sure has. So, and I think, if I would have got acquitted, I would have been the first one to have an acquittal from the jury of the J6 defendants. But if I got acquitted, then the United States would think, oh, the justice system is fair, because they did that,
Well, that's a remarkable way for you to look at it. I mean, that's a very magnanimous attitude, and I admire you. And you obviously, both of you obviously have such strong faith, and it's wonderful to see. But just quickly though, what do you know? And I don't, the fact that you would face any kind of prospective prison time, do you know what is the worst case scenario, or what your attorneys think will happen here?
Well, it could be 1 to 3 years in prison, and then up to $230,000 in fines. And is that right, Stacy? They tell you 1 or 3? I don't know. I mean, they can change everything, but that's what I
got. My sentence was, I was guilty on all 4 counts. The same 4 you probably got, misdemeanors.
Right, 4 federal misdemeanors.
Same four you did. I got 7 months on the first charge and the second charge, and 3 months on the third and the fourth charge, the smaller charges, and they ran concurrent, so I had 7 months. And I'm afraid that they're going to put you in jail, just like they are everybody who went in the Capitol. It's a standing thing. They're sending those people to jail. I mean, the judge said so, basically, in court. I asked for the transcripts for my sentencing because she had some things to say about Trump. Well, whenever I got my transcripts back, what she had to say about Trump was not in there.
Yeah, and that should be irrelevant. See, that's the problem with these politicized trials, and we see it in the Trump show trials, Alex Jones's trials, things like that. These are totally politicized. You can't a judge. What is it? You know, Trump is irrelevant to your case, other than the fact that you were there protesting for him or that you thought he was robbed. But that's why is she now making? I mean, we know what her opinion is of Trump. It's pretty obvious, but they're not supposed to make it so blatant. Yeah, but I mean, they're in the past.
Not from the bench.
Yeah, I mean, that's got. But as I've said in your case, Stacy, you were lectured a bit by the judge, and so many others. There was a guy on a case I have. My head swims trying to keep. I have it all written down because I'm writing about it. But there was one guy who actually lucked out, where he was given probation. He wasn't going to go to prison at all. And they found out he watched Mike Lindell's special about, the vote being fraudulent or something. Somebody found out or something, and they brought him back into court and gave him a year in jail or something for watching. I mean, can you imagine that? And the judge lectured him. You didn't learn your lesson. What? So you're supposed to give up your political beliefs? I mean, this is unbelievable.
That's the way it is in D.C. That's the way the court system is in D.C. That's the Department of Injustice for you under Biden. That there's a reason why the Department of Justice is the way it is right now. It's probably because the person who's running the country now probably shouldn't be there. And we may never see the real deal about what happened with that, but I'm entitled to my opinion.
Of course,
just like everyone else.
I mean, that's the idea.
My opinion is he's the thief in chief.
Yeah, and you,
that's what I think.
You have every right to say that. And there's the because obviously people have nobody's going to jail over a negative opinion about Trump. That's for sure. So the idea, and I just
that's for sure.
We are setting so many dangerous precedents here. But getting back to when, so we know what happened. We're back. It took them 3 years to catch up to this, this dangerous criminal. But in your case, how quickly did they get you? And a SWAT team came to your house. I guess they did. They maybe weren't quite as bad as, again, they've been pretty bad in some of the cases. They hadn't terrorized families and everything. But what happened in your case? How did they catch up to you, and how long did it take them to find you?
Still the same as what I said earlier. They came on May 25th, the day my first grandchild was born, and I was out of town. When I got back to town the next day, I called them up and said, "I'm here. How do I turn myself in?" I went down and turned myself in. I got credit for all this stuff. I was able to stay out. They didn't take me to the DC gulag like they did a lot of people. While I was in there, less than 13 minutes. While I was in there, I was trying to get out. I'd already approached a policeman about how in the hell did I get out, because I was lost. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any idea how to get out. So a policeman told me, and I followed his instructions verbatim. He told me that there's where the restroom was, because there's only one. There's only one in there. And he said I would see it on my way out, and sure enough, I did. Was in there less than 13 minutes. What was it you wanted to know about the trial? Oh, I had a bench trial.
Well, yeah, they took a few months to get you, and then the SWAT team came. Where they how did they treat you? And did they?
Thank God I wasn't here. I would have been probably.
They didn't destroy any property or anything.
No, they didn't. He asked. He told me to come outside with my hands high, and I said it's going to be kind of hard because I'm not there. And I said, well, since you're there, don't tear anything up. This is how you get in. And once he got in, he wanted to know how to get into a few other things. So told him how to get in. And he lied to me, told me he didn't have an arrest warrant for me. He just wanted to talk to me. Whenever he saw he wasn't going to get me, he had to call me back and talk me into coming and turn myself in. He changed his tune and he said, we have a arrest warrant for you for January 6th. So when he found out I wasn't there, he was like, "Where are you? You're messing up my raid. I got all these people watching, and you're messing it up."
Oh, unbelievable. So you go to
trial.
trial.
Misdemeanor. Four little misdemeanors.
Well, you see this
could have gave me a community service score, but no, I had to go to jail. I had to go to prison for 7 months for 4 misdemeanors.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And that's so you're what was your trial? What kind of attorney did you have? And obviously your judge was, I mean, all these judges are ridiculous. So I don't even have to ask that, but what was your representation like? And did you think you had any chance? Probably not, I guess.
I had a public defender and no, I had no chance. No chance of the snowball in hell of getting a innocent verdict. None. I had a bench trial with Tanya Chutkin. She had been, during all the hearings, I had not looked her up online. So I had no idea she was an Obama appointee and she was progressive liberal and she was giving it almost everyone, not almost, she was giving everyone jail time. They were guilty anyway, and like around 70% of them were going to prison. So that was way more than some of the other judges. But she was really nice to me. I told her what was going on. I kept getting detained at the border check station on I-10. It's about 30, 40 miles from the border. It's just the border check station. People drive through there. Border Patrol asked them if they're a resident of the United States and let them drive on through. Well, they didn't let me drive on through. They held me. I got detained twice there, once for 3 hours, another time for 45 minutes. The second time, the commanding officer recognized me from the time before and got me out of there quicker. So that was a blessing. But the first time I was there with my significant other and our grandson, 7 years old, stuck in the heat for 3 hours. And I-10, it's hot. It's hot there out there by El Paso in the middle of summer, in the middle of July. And
so when you served your 7 months, you said it wasn't in DC. You didn't serve time in DC.
Not at all.
Okay. So
and whenever they sentenced me, Judge Chutkin allowed me to self-surrender, reprimand, or whatever it is, self-remand. I prefer that better than surrender because I'm not much of a surrenderer.
Yeah.
I mean, I've already been through prison and everything, and here I am talking to you. So I'm not gonna surrender. I'm not gonna change my opinion about the 2020 election. I'm not gonna suddenly believe that everything that happened at the Georgia Civic Center with the totes of ballots was all legal, like they say on MSN.
Right.
Everything you saw was legal. All those backpacks that came in for days and days and days, and thousands of backpacks. They came through the door, went in full, came out empty. All that was legal.
Well, the message obviously.
Truckloads of ballots and the truckloads of ballots that they're now publishing reports on, exonerating truck drivers who whistle blew about the truckloads of ballots that were shipped across the nation. That's just now being exonerated. What about all the tens of thousands of affidavits of wrongdoing in the election that we heard about,
Yes,
but
exactly.
never were seen? None of them were ever seen because somewhere there was yuck of Zuck, Zyuck, Zuck paid $450 million. And it wasn't all for just drop boxes. You don't pay $450 million for a few drop boxes.
Right.
There's some judges out there who preside over election issues that wound up with really fat bank accounts. If it wasn't in theirs, it was in their brothers, their mothers, their daughters, their cousins. Somebody wound up with a fat bank account. We don't have anybody following them up, but there's $450 million out there.
Do you see the comment from John Basaglone? It says, "I hope you didn't pay your attorney a dime. Did you have to pay the public defender? How does that work? Because he doesn't seem like he did much of a defense for you."
No, you don't.
Okay,
public defenders are free.
Well, that's good. At least
I'm pretty much destitute. Pretty much a destitute dude.
Well, I
just have an opinion.
Well, I don't know if you were still in the workforce or not, or what your status was as a worker for, but I know that several of the people that I've written about it, people don't realize what this label carries to the general public. You're a January 6th defendant. I mean, there are millions of people out there who look at you and think,
I'm worse than that. Whenever the authorities call up my name, it's probably the same thing with Rebecca. When the authorities call up my name, what pops up as violent extremist. That's me.
Yeah.
This 60-year-old fart is a violent extremist because I have an opinion and they don't like my opinion. So I'm a violent extremist.
Well, so were you still working before this? And did you lose your job?
No,
are you able?
No, I've been retired for several years.
Okay. See, okay. So because I know what is really hard is when you hear about people that even after they get out of prison, they have this label, and if they're young enough that they still have to work, they can't retire. Then they're ostracized by their community. I'm not going to hire you. It's it's like being what do you call a sex predator or something. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
These guys right here, they're going to have trouble.
Yeah, I was going to say those guys look like they have some years left in the workforce there, and not everybody can be like Owen Schroyer and go back to InfoWars or something, but they're and people. I wish it, and there's people even in my great audience, but there's so many people who are cynical about everything. But it doesn't matter what you think of Trump or anything else. This is wrong. However you look at this, what is happening? This is political persecution. This is an absolute bastardization of the justice system, whatever justice system there is. But it started before this because you mentioned the all the over 1,000 affidavits. People had sworn they have over 1,000 affidavits from poll workers.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah. So
tens of thousands.
These are all they're unconnected to each other. But the problem is the courts are so bad. When Trump's team, and they didn't do the best job, but when his legal team did take it, I think they went to 62 courts. And 60 of the 62 courts wouldn't even look at the evidence. And some of them, I don't know how many, but a number of them were with Trump appointed judges. That's, and one of the worst judges in this Kelly in the J6 people was a Trump appointee. Yeah, was appointed Richard. So this is so, the corruption is unbelievable, and I don't know how the system is broken, at this point, because you guys are seeing it firsthand. But so how, both of you, the idea for the 2024 election. At this point, Trump himself is being prosecuted for protesting the election, even in the same state where Stacey Abrams continues to publicly say she was robbed and she'll never be prosecuted. And he'll be convicted just like the J6ers. I mean, it's inevitable because the juries he gets are always gonna convict every time. So what's your confidence level about the election coming up? I mean, is there any reason to think that the votes will be counted honestly? Because not only has no acknowledgement of fraud from 2020 or 2022 been acknowledged, they are prosecuting people, including Trump, for saying that there was fraud. So I don't understand how, to me, I don't know how Republicans can possibly think that this will not be fraudulent again, because they've established.
It's really simple, Don. It's really simple. You have faith.
Yep.
You vote.
Yep.
That's how you have hope.
Well, yeah,
all the things that they're trying to get rid of, all the things that the devil is trying to get rid of right now is what we need. That's what's going to get us out of this. Hope, faith. Get out and vote. And
I admire your faith and your hope, and believe me, I would like nothing better to see this addressed. But this is a huge problem. Obviously, Rebecca, you obviously you have great faith. You're smiling, you're upbeat, which is it's wonderful to see, because you've been the victim of a tremendous injustice too, as everybody has. So, are you, obviously you have strong faith? So I'm assuming you agree with Stacy.
Well, I believe the only way that we can get our country back is through God. I mean, I can't speak to just the way things are, because it's going to have to be a God thing, a divine intervention of God to get our country back.
Yep, I think so.
A lot of it has, and I feel like the reason why God put me in the place of a voice for right now is because I think there are a whole lot of people that aren't aware of this. There's a whole segment of people that do love our country, they love God, but they're not aware. They've kind of hidden themselves, and I think I have the opportunity through my type of voice to speak to them, because if we have just people, it's going to have to be from the bottom up. It's going to have to be we the people standing up. It's not the people at the top, and we have to have people that are willing to go and run for offices in these state legislatures. We have to have people that are running and and stepping up and doing it. It's not just about, I mean, I agree about the vote. We have to get on vote, and we have to wake up the people of America to do that. But we have to have people that are getting into the local school boards. If you still keep your kids in school, I never did. I homeschooled my kids all the time because I already knew it was corrupt back, 30, 40 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, if we go to the counties and the commissioners, the sheriffs, the state legislatures, state senate, and representatives in the House, I mean, we can change that if we start at the bottom. And my county, Colorado is not a very good state to be in right now, but we have people in my local county that are really strong and won't be bought by the political agenda of name or money, and they're running, and I believe God's going to bring up the right people, because I don't believe God's done with our country. And I have faith that God's going to turn it around. If you use somebody like me, an average American grandmother, to stand and go there and use my voice, then I believe he's going to raise up more people that are going to not bow down, not give in, not worry about any sentence or whatever, and to know that we have a bigger purpose.
Well, you definitely clearly have faith. It's amazing, and it's wonderful to see, because you're willing to go through something like this, which you don't remotely deserve to be going through. And but I agree with you, and I've written a lot about how this is the problem we face. The corruption we're up against is unprecedented in the history of the world. America today is the most corrupt nation that has ever existed. I don't know what the Soviets or the Nazis or Mao's, I don't know what they could have been like, but they could not have been worse than this. And you guys are living proof of that.
Now.
I mean, they're throwing your political prisoners, your dissidents. You voted for the wrong candidate, and then you chose to express your dissatisfaction, which you're supposed to be able to do under the Constitution, the governing document. And yet, as Rebecca said, you couldn't use the First Amendment in your trial. Every judge is supposed to be upholding the Constitution, and you can't use the most precious part of the Constitution. The only thing that makes it what it is. No, you can't. And Alex Jones couldn't use it in his trials. He wasn't in D.C. They told him the First Amendment is no excuse. What? That's my entire case, Your Honor. I have the right to talk about events and speculate. This is what I have to ask questions. That's the problem we have. And I believe they told Trump the Constitution wasn't a thing. So regardless of what you think, any of these personalities, you see people like you guys are collateral damage to this, because you're being swept in, and you're going into courtrooms where you have judges lecturing you and doing things that are totally inappropriate, giving their opinions of the political candidate you voted for, which what? Telling you maybe you shouldn't have, you should be getting your news from somewhere else. And some of the candidates, there's some female attorney, I believe that a lot of the people, J6ers, have been assigned as the attorney, and her whole shtick has been to get them to agree to watch videos from the other side, or basically sensitivity training, and get their sentence reduced by saying, well, I watched this, and now and a couple of them have done that and said, I realized to try to get, you guys didn't go through that, but again, I've been researching this, and it's astonishing.
Well, I think, yeah, Don, I really, yeah, I think that's the whole purpose. And that's why without God, I would be probably in that camp, but because I believe that I'm not afraid. And that's what they want to do. Thomas Jefferson said that when the government fears the people, that's liberty. Yeah. The people fear the government, that's tyranny. And we're facing tyranny. And I think the reason why things are happening, why people like Stacy and I are getting arrested and we're charged and all that and convicted, is because they're getting away with it. But all they knew is if they get enough of us getting charged like that, and then we're seen, and the United States of America is going to wake up. The real people. You don't know how many thousands of emails and people that getting from people that are willing to stand up. I have a website called restoringgodlyculture.com, and people can put their email in there, and they're going to get an email every day from me saying giving them encouragement to stand up and do their part. And I think if people wake up and see that, not enough people are woke up yet. You're going to have to wake up America before we can get that done. And I think that's what God's doing. And he's just going to change America by one person at a time standing up and then multiplying. And then we will have a force that said, this is enough. We're not going to put up with it. Because I believe that if you go back to the original intent, our country was founded on godly principles. And if we don't get back, we need to get back to that, because God is a big God. He created the universe. When you go and see the beauty that God created, we know there's somebody that made us, and it's not ourselves. And, and God he has a covenant, and he's just waiting for those of us that know him to stand up and agree with him. And then God's going to move, and he's going to make something happen. That's where I believe that things are going to, I don't know how, I don't know when, but I do know that God is on our side if we stand up for the original intent of this country.
Absolutely. I think I finally got an email from a message from this guy. Let's see. Okay. Sorry. He's not going to be able to make it. Sorry about that. I was hoping he could jump on late, but yeah, you make a couple points that I think I've talked a lot about America being so corrupt and everything, the world being so corrupt. I don't know what Sodom and Gomorrah was like, but I can't imagine it was this bad. And we know what happened there, but so I think God is the only answer. I think you would have to have a supernatural force to clean this mess up. I think it's beyond human repair. I don't know how, I would like to think that, but I think this is something that only a God could fix. And so I think that's that. And you mentioned the bill of our God, the fact that I think the reason why they hate and who was it? somebody was reading about somebody in the media or somebody on CNN or one of those places, and it was again bemoaning the problems of the First Amendment, because what they hate about that is that the founders believed that these rights were inalienable and they were granted by God. They're God-given rights. No government can grant us these rights, these basic human rights. And this is what they hate. Because first of all, they don't believe in God. So how would they believe in God-given rights? They don't believe he exists. So they believe the state grants these rights. So don't you think I think this is the fundamental problem. We're split pretty much down the middle. You have, there's many millions of us that are never going to go along with 57 genders and all this insanity that we see out there playing it. But the other side is, they're making fun of God and they're mocking God, and they're saying, so they don't care about the idea. I've gotten in arguments online with people about free speech. I'm a free speech purist. And that's your white free speech. I said, what do you mean white? What is that? What do you mean? What, you don't want free speech? I don't understand. So if you're not white and you don't want free speech, I don't even understand. But there's people out there that believe that, and that's so. I don't know, Stacy. Obviously, you're in the same camp as us. You have strong faith as well, which is it's great to see.
I have a few things to add. What's happening to me and Rebecca and the rest of these people who are getting shanghaied from January 6th is there's a lot of people out there that think we deserve it. They're not half the population or anything like that. But let's say there's a third of people out there in this country who think we deserve what we're getting.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is, and not being able to use the First Amendment as a defense and all that stuff, they think that's perfectly fine. Well, as soon as those people think differently about what the administration, the people in charge, the deep state, whoever's running the show here, which I have opinions about it, but as soon as someone says, I don't agree with that, they're going to come after you next. You're not going to be able to use the First Amendment.
Right.
It's going to be you. Because what they do to me and they do to Rebecca and the rest of the J6ers, they're doing to y'all tomorrow. As soon as you say, I don't think what you're doing is right, you say that, and all of a sudden you don't have a First Amendment anymore. I mean, they'll talk a big game until you want to try to use the First Amendment as your defense. And then all of a sudden these people that are in the Department of Injustice say you can't do that. Who gave them the ability to negate the Constitution?
Yeah, that's a
who gave Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell the permission or the authority to override the Constitution and keep us from assembling on the public grounds of the Capitol? I mean, if they had just let us be there without firing at us and antagonizing us, and assaulting us, shooting us with rubber bullets, give me a break.
Yeah.
But blowing the guy's cheek open.
But yourself, other than Tucker Carlson, and it took Tucker Carlson a little bit of time, but then he became really good on it. But right away from the very beginning, other than Trump still protesting the vote, the entire Republican Party stood down on you guys. They did not raise hell about what was happening with you guys for a long time. And the entire Republican Party should, because the opposition party, they should, if they're really an opposition, first of all, they should have been interested in the evidence of vote fraud. They weren't. They couldn't wait to try to, we have Joe Biden's president, he won fair and square. That's all they were concerned about. Especially the Republicans.
Ramming through the election.
And that was.
But those people are the uniparty.
Yes, they are.
They're not. They're not Republicans. They're not Republicans. They're not Democrats. They're out for themselves. I'll call them the Uniparty.
Well, you see it.
I don't know whether they're the CIA. Oh, I don't know who it is, but somebody's putting these legislators in their pocket.
Right. Exactly.
As soon as they get in to the club.
Well, you're seeing this with Mike Johnson now.
They're going in. They're making maybe 100,000, maybe 200,000 a year.
Yeah.
And they've been in there 4 years, and they have millions and millions of dollars.
Yes, yeah. Well, there's a
Where's
meme
the
out
money
there
coming from?
There's a meme out there with Alvin Bragg, who makes obviously less than that in New York. One of the people prosecuting Trump, who's supposedly allegedly worth $42 million. How is this possible? And nobody's asking where that. Yeah, that's what the meme out there is. And can you imagine that? Yeah. And there's, there are people again. They look. Fannie Willis. We had the same kind of thing where she the money she makes doesn't add up to the net worth she has. And usually it used to be because you had things like that would happen sometimes in the past with police officers. If they saw, wait a minute, how's that? How's he living in that house on his salary? And it would raise eyebrows back then. But this is way more egregious than that.
Thief and chiefs, the people who are running the country, the thief and chiefs. Where did they get all that money?
Well, yeah, obviously these people are.
I've got a few things here that. You were wanting to know where you can view the videos.
Yes.
Stacy Hager this is at YouTube. Stacy Hager at Stacy Hager 8812. That'll get you to those videos. I started a group on Facebook. It's just a place where people like us can come and talk, congregate, assemble, express our opinions. It's a highly vetted group, and it's called capital letters STAND, STAND. The Whiskey Rebellion, those words are capitalized.
Oh, and Whiskey Rebellion.
Facebook,
now you're talking my language. Yeah.
Whiskey Rebellion, if anybody knows about, that's the first revolution that happened in this country, and it happened before the 1800s. Yeah. 1778, I think it was.
Well, you had Shays Rebellion and the Whiskey Rebellion both, and they were very. The founders were great, for the most part, but they weren't perfect. And the Shays Rebellion, the Whiskey Rebellion showed that they weren't. They were completely living up there. Obviously, we look at them now and would love to have. We'd love to have a few of them in office now. I can sense Stacy's probably been, kind of in this world for a while. Rebecca, again, you're just kindly looking, somehow great grandmother. When did you, how did you? Were you always politically active? Is this all coming out of your faith? Or when did you become to where you're looked at as a political extremist?
Well, there's a. Well, I don't know if you know who Martin Luther was in the 1500s. I grew up. My early childhood, I was brought up in the Lutheran church, and Martin Luther was the reformer, and he said, I don't know if I'm quoted, I'm not giving exactly quote right, but he was attributed as saying that if you're not fighting against the very smallest thing that the devil and the world are fighting, then you're really not professing Christ. And at the beginning, I said that I've always been my main mission in life was to know God and the things that are on his heart. And as far as I've always been involved a little bit in making sure I voted and getting out and campaigning for the candidate that I thought was going to, be the right one to, save our liberties, because my dad was a government and a history teacher. And so I've always been involved in it somewhat. But I think the bigger thing is, when I think that people know this about people that love our country. We want to stand for our liberties, and usually the Republican Party is the one that, up till now, mostly, has stood for those liberties. And so we just live our lives. We don't, see what's going on sometimes because we're living the kind of life we want to live, with our freedoms. But then when they start getting when they're being eroded, and we're seeing the ideologies taken away, I started getting more involved, basically because I knew God wanted something done. And if we don't stand up, I pray, but I also love God. And he said, if you have if you have faith, you need to put action with your faith. And so that's why I started getting more involved in what was going on in our country, because and I think you had mentioned there's, half and half, or I don't know if that's what you meant, but I think there's a segment of people that, like you, that know what our liberties are and how bad it is. And then there's a section on the other side that are trying to tell us we're, with all these other genders and whatever we are, they want us to believe that the state is God. But I believe there's this section in the middle, that really don't even know what's going on. And I feel like that's the people that we have to wake up, because if we can wake up, I don't believe there are that many, they cry the loudest, the 5% of the liberals.
Right.
But that's not who we are.
And they're in prominent positions. They have big platforms.
Yeah, they'd have big platforms. They got a lot of money. And that's, people go to that and they convince other people that get there the right way. They convince them and change them. But I think there's a lot of good people that don't know it. And I feel like if we can wake that segment of our country up through my story or through Stacy's, we've got to wake up that the people in the middle that don't see it. And so that's why I got involved, because I know that we have to do something, and we got to wake people up. And I've always been kind of more of an adventurer, a forerunner. I started homeschooling my kids when nobody else was doing it 40 years.
Yeah.
So I think there are certain people that are called to be on the forefront, and be the ones to go through the doors that open for us so we can change our country and get it back the way it's supposed to be. And are not willing to risk our lives. There's a scripture in the Bible says that we overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. But the last part of that verse says, and we love not our lives unto death. And I think that's one of my favorite heroes of the Revolutionary War was Nathan Hale. He died at 21 because he said, I only regret that I have but one life.
Yes. Yeah, it's amazing they don't make them like that anymore. Thank you, Molly Brown, for the kind words. Thomas Foney says, bless both of you. God bless both Rebecca and Stacy for speaking out. And you guys you obviously are walking the walk here. And some people would be, in your case, Stacy, some people would be maybe kind of fearful that they'll come after you again, and maybe think, okay, well, I got to stop talking. They might throw me in prison for a longer time now. And in your case, Rebecca, you might try to be, maybe I'll go watch some of the movies that female lawyer wants me to make and go try to humble myself before the courts, because there have been defendants that have done that. And it's sad to see, because the fact that they're apologizing for their beliefs, they're not apologizing for their actions. And this is the problem we have in all these prosecutions. They're going after, well, you watched a Michael Lindell special. And that has what bearing on what you supposedly did inside the Capitol that's supposedly a crime? I mean, this is this is really, really dangerous ground we're on. And I'm a civil libertarian. There's very few of us left. I came from the left, and it amazes me. The ACLU and everybody is sitting there. And Stacy, it's a great thing you didn't go to DC, the DC Gulag, because I've heard enough stories from that place. It's just, amazing. And they wouldn't even let the Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and a few of them in there they wanted to go check it out. See, are they really being stuck in solitary confinement, or were you subjected to any mistreatment in prison, Stacy? I can't hear you.
No, but I've heard firsthand from other J6ers that were there, Big O, DC. They were there. They were stuck in the DC Gulag, and it was not a good thing. David Sampson was beat within an inch of his life. A lot of them were beat, and I just heard what they told me.
Rebecca, do you?
I'm not really.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
About me being afraid. If they want to get me, they've got my retinal scans. They got my DNA. They got everything they want on me. So if they want to get me, they're going to get me. And if I want to be somebody who I can look at in the mirror, then I need to be able to say my piece, say the truth. Biggest problem we have in this country today is people don't put enough faith in the truth. They'd rather be lied to. Yeah, they'd rather accept a nice, neat little lie instead of the real truth. Like that Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell had no damn business whatsoever stopping us from assembling on the Capitol grounds. No business whatsoever.
Right.
To stop that. 1 million, there was enough room for 10,000 people. A little permitted area where this lady went and did where Rebecca did her prayer. And where were the other 990,000 people going to go? They weren't going to fit in that 10,000 little area or 10,000 people. There was over 1 million people there.
What did you think?
Where were they supposed to go?
What did you think?
Wait a second. Let me just tell you what Nancy did. What Nancy did to us and Mitch. They took away the restrooms. There were no restrooms there because they didn't think we were human enough to deserve restrooms or water. No water. There was no water there. No restrooms. No water. Because we're part of that MAGA, ultra MAGA group, that the man veiled in red had his sort of speech on, and we don't deserve to be humans. They didn't want us there. They didn't want what we had. We were there to object to an election we thought was fraudulent. They didn't want to hear that. And they made it abundantly clear that they didn't want to hear that. They had a little committee that they set up and lied about and lost evidence and misrepresented what went on. They didn't even tell about all the complete assault by police on innocent men, women, and children.
Yes.
I mean, if you're standing there with your wife and your child, and they launch a flashbang, and it goes off right by your kid, what are you going to do as a husband, a father? What are you going to do? You say, "Oh, okay, call 911." No, you're going to get mad, and the mothers too.
Absolutely.
They went ballistic. There was mama bears everywhere. And none of them were trying to be like riot or anything. They were just trying to survive. They rushed everybody into that one little area. There were people calling on bullhorns all over the place. So whenever I got there, were 250,000 people there. Well, they crammed them all in. They tried to cram them all into this little bitty area, and there was just no room for them. So they started following them up underneath the scaffolding, and that went straight to the damn Capitol. Nobody wanted to be up there. They just didn't want to get pummeled by flashbangs and tear gas grenades and rubber bullets, and they were shooting high velocity pepper balls at people.
Yeah, all you hear about is
rubber bullets.
Yeah. And this is the same media that, if this was a left wing or certainly a Black Lives Matter Antifa thing, then obviously the media would not have been on the police side, but they were clearly they didn't question anything about the police, or they wouldn't reveal the name of the officer for a long time that killed Ashley Babbitt. They finally did, and then he got some kind of award from Congress, which is absolutely ridiculous. Well, what did you think? And then Rebecca, what did you think?
Roseanne Boylan got beat in front of everybody on tape.
Absolutely. Yep.
Let's not forget about that.
And they won't even acknowledge.
She was passed out, and the lady beat her until she died.
Yes, sir. And that's another officer, a female officer that will never be charged.
You know what she got? She got promoted.
Yeah.
She got an award or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did the one who killed it. So that's that. But what did you think when you saw? I think it was.
Do you think that they thought we were human, a little less than human?
Yes, absolutely.
That's the
That's the way
reason
they
why they
treated
didn't have
you.
any restrooms for us, no
Yeah,
water.
sure,
You
sure.
know.
What did you?
They beat us to death. They shot one lady unarmed.
Yeah, just it's again, it's just one of
All
the
because
ugliest chapters.
she had the audacity. She had the audacity to try to get into the people's house, Pelosi
Right,
house.
exactly. What
That
did
was her
you
major crime,
when you
and
saw
she
Tucker
paid for it with her
Carlson?
life.
When Tucker Carlson aired all that footage, you got access to some of the footage that we looked forward to an entire week of it. And the first day was fantastic. He concentrated on the Q shaman, the Jacob Chansley guy, but just seeing that opened a lot of Americans' eyes. You know, when you saw the police wandering in, opening doors for him, and you saw him leading a prayer for the police officers in the tunnel, where he's saying, and this
That's
again,
what
I
it
thought,
was.
and what happened?
Wasn't it, Rebecca?
Somebody came down on Tucker Carlson big time, and he was fired shortly after that. I think it was because of that. What did you guys think of that coverage? Because he was the only one in
Go
the
ahead,
media that did it. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Yeah. I just think there's already, I mean, the injustice is already clear, but I think we just have to, more people have to know about it. And I think there's enough people doing it, you know, seeing it. And like I'll say at the beginning, I said the whole time, unless we return to putting God first in our lives individually, we're not going to get this country back. But yeah, there's a lot of injustice, and it's been going around a long time.
Well, you were such a great attitude, Rebecca. And what did it, because you've gotten, you know, this, I don't know who gave you the nickname, the praying grandma, but I mean, it's kind of a media thing and you've gotten attention from it. Have you been contacted by Alex Jones or Tucker Carlson? You seem tailor-made for the big shows for this.
Well, President Trump tweeted about me, and Elon Musk said that this isn't right. So I guess I'm getting some recognition.
I bet. Yeah, I bet you are. But I would be surprised if Alex doesn't contact you or Tucker Carlson, because Tucker Carlson had, you know, several people now that he's kind of independent, maybe because you certainly are going to reach pretty many people here because these shows get rebroadcast on Alex Jones's band.video. So it'll go out to more people there. And also Jeff Rentz, he has a big network too. He will rerun these shows, more people that are watching it live. But I'm interested in both of you guys, and most of my audience is skeptical about Trump. I call myself a Trump agnostic at this point. We're the smallest minority group in the world, I think. But so there's almost none of us out there. But both, I get in the case, and I know Ashley Babbitt's mother still strongly supports Trump. Almost most of the J6ers I've had on here still do. How do you guys feel? Do you feel betrayed at all by Trump, or do you think he didn't speak out enough for you, or what are your feelings still about Donald Trump?
Well, I can speak for myself. I got to meet President Trump a year ago. He was at the Iowa State Fair, and I got on the tarmac and met him, and I had just about 10 seconds to share what I did. And I just shared, I was thankful that he was fighting for our country, because I think he's the best one out there that's fighting for our nation. And when I told him that I was also fighting for our nation because of being a January 6th defendant, he said, that's persecution. We need to stop that. So he was very caring. If you look at my website, Restoring Godly Culture, I have some photos of me with him, and I think he does care. He's on the forefront caring to bring our national sovereignty back, and I don't think that anybody else is doing that. So that's why I'm backing President Trump right now. I know a lot of people don't necessarily agree with some of that, but I just feel like I'm there. I went to Washington, D.C., not specifically to pray, or not specifically to hear President Trump. That wasn't the main reason I went there. I went to pray for our nation. And like I say in a lot of things, President Trump is going to come and he'll go. You know, it's not about him. It's about getting the American people, the republic, to stand up and stand for our rights and our freedoms so that we can have the country that we have loved. I mean, I'm 71, going to be 72. And when I grew up as a kid, this wasn't anything like our country. You could ride your bike anywhere. I rode my bike all over town, and you can't do that very freely anymore. My grandkids aren't able to do that as much as I was able to. So whoever's going to fight the strongest for getting our liberties back, that's who I'm behind. So
how about you, Stacy?
I don't think Trump has done anything to me personally. It's not Trump's fault what they are doing to us. It wasn't Trump's fault that Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell took the restrooms away, took away the water for over 1 million people. I keep saying that.
No, yeah, expound on that. You're saying that
there was 1 million. There was
so they had
over
one bathroom. Okay, so now, but you're talking about inside. Where was they had one restroom available? Where, and the water fountains were not on, or what? Where you're talking about at the demonstration itself, outside?
Inside the Capitol, there's one restroom.
Okay.
In that great big building, there's one public restroom. One public.
Yeah.
And that's all. Outside on the grounds where there were 1 million people, over 1 million people probably, there were no restrooms, no public restrooms, no porta potties.
Yeah. Yeah.
No water facilities. None. Zero.
Well, I think that I'm not defending Nancy Pelosi because she's obviously horrible, but I think that is a little bit more of an indication of how poorly DC is run. I think they generally don't provide for
the
crowds.
restrooms were there. They were there like 2 days before. They were there. She had them taken out. You didn't know that? You know that?
I've heard something about it, but it's hard. It's hard to, again, it's so hard that you hear so much, and I try to concentrate on the big issue of this was a constitutional right, the right to assemble. People do. I don't care how many times you try to prosecute Trump or Rudy Giuliani or anybody else. People have the right. It's not illegal to protest a vote, to overturn the vote. Well, if you think the vote was fraudulent, you should try to overturn it. I mean, you
gotta overturn it, right?
Yeah, I mean, so but
at least you should do is take a look at it.
Exactly, and that's all I was doing.
There was take a look at it.
There was no, again, what happens is this myth comes along. They've never been able to come up with any witnesses who constructed the ridiculous gallows, supposedly that they wanted to string Mike Pence up, and who did that? Is anybody being prosecuted for that? But this is part of the mythology.
Nope.
And instead, as far as I know, maybe you all are different. They've never found a single gun amongst those 1 million people, or whatever. There was not a. So it's kind of a strange way to have an insurrection. To do it without any guns at all, especially when you have so many Second Amendment people there. I mean, wouldn't you think they would bring their guns?
There was over 1 million people there.
Insurrection. Insurrection, you have to have ammo or something.
Excuse me, there were over 1 million people there. Like 2,000 people went inside the Capitol. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Of over the 1 million people that were there, I'm sure there was way more weapons than what they could defend at the Capitol. If they wanted a insurrection, there would have been one.
Sure. They're
will be there. If there would have been, they wanted an insurrection, there would have been one. You can't stop 1 million people. They found that out.
And I believe they one of the weapons they found was one woman had a tambourine, and they charged her with having a weapon. I think they've had a couple people had pocket knives. For whatever reason, I don't know why so many people apparently had bear spray, but why would people be carrying around bear spray? But that's what I've heard. They've charged several J6ers with of assaulting police officers with a weapon, and the weapon was bear spray. Do you know anything more? I mean, why would you have bear spray? I don't understand that. Were they expecting bear in DC? I mean, was this just made up?
one of the guys at Seagoville that I left behind that I feel really guilty about because my sentence was over and they're still there. But anyway, he picked up a can off the ground and sprayed it at some cops that were dumping a can in a woman's face and beating her with the shield. You know, and all he did was spray it in their direction, and he got charged.
Yeah, there's a couple examples of that of people of guys that tried to defend someone else from being assaulted by a police officer. Again, with no weapon, they didn't have any weapon except if they had some of this convenient bear spray. But this is just it's an amazing story.
One of the other guys that is in that particular prison I was in, he was on the line and they had the riot shields, and the guy was coming over the top of the shield, beating the woman next to him. He caught the club, the nightstick, and pushed it back into his chest. That's what he got hit with an assault for. He's in there for like 27 months because he did that. That was all he did.
Now, both of you, Stacy, you probably know more, but both of you, do you? Because obviously I got you through J6 Patriot News. I was giving, well, not Rebecca. Rebecca, I looked you up because you've been in the news a lot. Stacy got you through, and the other people that were supposed to be on as well. Do you stay in contact much with fellow? Is this kind of a camaraderie thing? I get the sense a lot of people that went through this together now have become, soldiers in arms or whatever, metaphorically, in terms of you look at them as comrades because you've gone through something together. Have you made many friends this way?
I've connected with some of them, like Jake Lang. He reached out to me. Yeah. And I know some others. There was another gentleman that went to trial with my attorneys when I was there. So I've connected with some of them, but a few people here and there. Yeah.
Stacy has the picture he has there. You want to shout out their names again. Give them a shout out.
Okay, we got let me see if I can get this right. We got Phipps, that's me. There's Phipps, there's Big O, there's DC, and there's Judd. And they're really good people.
Well, you all
I'll look forward to seeing them every time they come.
I've talked to several.
Everybody I met there on the 6th was good people. If I'd have ran into Rebecca, I would have remembered her as good people. There were people inside the rotunda that were praying, and I stopped and prayed with them. They were good people. There were people on the steps outside praying. They were good people. There was hardly anyone swinging. And you got to remember that this crowd backs the blue. They backed the blue. They could not believe that the police were firing live weapons on them.
Absolutely.
Live rounds.
Well, you all are good people.
It was a war zone.
You guys, I have not met anybody, any J6ers or heard of any J6ers that weren't good people. You're the salt of the earth. You're the kind of people that are going to be at the forefront if we can ever overturn this tyranny, and it's absolute tyranny. So I want to thank both of you. I want to give both of you a chance. Rebecca, give out that link again, and anything else you want to say, anything you want to sum up or anything else, anything we missed. Go ahead, whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Go to my website, restoringgodlyculture.com, just like restoringgodlyculture.com. Go to my website if you want to know more about how to, stand up and fight as far as by getting we the people up there. That's where that's my whole goal, is to wake up the American people. So, and I have a new MAGA movement. It's called Make America Godly Again. So I think we just have to wake up people to put God first in their lives. And if we put God first, there's a scripture in the Bible that in Proverbs 28:5 that says, Evil men do not understand justice, but those who crave and seek the Lord understand it fully. And if God's not number one in your life, then you become God. And we know that man's heart is evil from its youth. So we've got to put God on there instead of man and the state. So put God first, and we'll get our country back. That's my mantra.
Amen to that, Rebecca. You're lovely, and I wish you the best of luck. And Stacy, anything you want to give out that link again so people can watch the video, and anything else you want to say?
Stacy Hager at State. This is on YouTube. Stacy Hager at Stacy Hager, small letters. 8812 is the channel. There's several videos on there. The ones that you want to see, ones of me cussing, mostly are me cussing. And as soon as I saw the flashbang go off in the middle of all them people and that woman, I lost my mind and I was cussing up a storm. So
email. Do me a favor.
On there. Whenever I was on the grandstands, I couldn't believe it was fucking believable, and it was. There was a million people. I mean, and the video shows them all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue.
Well, can you email me? I'm going to text you my email. Please email me that link because I want to look at those videos. Very much. Okay. Again, Stacy Hager, Rebecca Lavrens, thank you both so much for being here. Rebecca, I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Stacy, keep fighting. Both of you keep fighting. It's wonderful that you have faith and you have a great attitude, and I thank you so much. And,
thanks a lot.
Hopefully we'll look forward to some better news will be coming down the pike here. Take care. Thanks everybody for listening to I Protest.
Thanks.
We'll talk to you next week, same time. Take it easy.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.